Hi BookTube, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and since it's the Christmas season, I wanted to do a video where I talk about A Christmas Carol, particularly the adaptations of A Christmas Carol. So this is, if you have not read the short story Christmas Carol, you have probably at least seen one of the many adaptations. There are a lot of them. There are probably ones that I haven't even heard of or I've never watched before. So first, in case you don't know, this is the story, The Christmas Carol is the story of Scrooge, a miserly old man who works at a counting house, and he is not the biggest fan of Christmas. He thinks it's all humbug. He's greedy. He doesn't want to share any of his money. And he ends up getting visited by his old partner, Jacob Marley, who died before the story starts. And Jacob was a lot like him when he was alive. But then as a spirit, he warned Scrooge that if he does not change his ways and become a better man, he will end up like him. A spirit doomed to walk the earth with the chains of his money that he never shared with people. And to guide him on this path and make sure, to help him, he will be visited by three spirits: the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas yet to come. And these spirits each take him on a journey to see his past, see what's going on in the present during Christmas time, and also seeing what his future could hold if he is not careful. This is a Christmas classic, and a lot of times people recommend starting with this one because it's not as long. It's a very simple story with only one main character. Yes, there are several other characters throughout the story, but like with Great Expectations and Oliver Twist and David Copperfield, you just get the one narrator. And you spend most of your time, you see things through that one character's eyes. But this is a shorter version of that. But of course I understand, though this is a shorter story, it still has Dickens's verbose language, and he's very wordy and exaggerates things, and sometimes his characters come off as archetypes or, cliches, and he is kind of rough on writing his when it comes to writing children and women, it wasn't that great. I mean, I think it got better as his novels he continued to write. And there's also, this is kind of a fictionalized version of his creating the story, A Christmas Carol. So I don't know how accurate it is to what actually happened and what inspired him. But I will talk about this one as well a little bit. But if you have, like I said, if you've not read this one, you will probably see one of the millions of adaptations. Disney did 2 adaptations. You have, one of my favorites is a musical version. You have a stage show that my dad, our local community theater, before we moved here, did A Christmas Carol. My dad was the Ghost of Christmas Present. There's been, the Muppets did one. There was one from 1971 with Albert Finney as the title character. You have one from you have the Scrooged from, I think, the 80s, starring Bill Murray. It's more of a modern adaptation. And I think it's my friend Terry from Florida. It's one of her favorite adaptations of the story. Then you have one starring Sir Patrick Stewart as the title character. And then I think that came out in the 90s. Both Doctor Who and Boy Meets World did episodes that were A Christmas Carol inspired. There was a black and white version. That old cartoon, Mr. Magoo, he has his version. There's his version. Hallmark last year did one. I think there's been other TV movie versions as well. I just don't remember them. Like, I vaguely recall seeing them, but I don't remember much about them, so I probably won't talk about them. I won't talk about them if I'm right, and they do exist out there. And, there are so many versions, and I'm sure there's a lot of versions that I'm not familiar with, that came out, but I'm going to talk about the ones that I love. And actually, really, I only have one. Other than The Man Who Invented Christmas, I only have this one on DVD, because I just got this one for my birthday. I asked for this one. And then, of course, because we have Disney Plus, I can watch the Disney ones and the Muppet one on Disney Plus. So I put the book down. So first, I'm going to talk about the Disney ones. So the very first one I ever saw was Mickey's Christmas Carol, which stars Mickey Mouse as Bob Cratchit, the clerk that works for Scrooge, and Scrooge McDuck is Scrooge, and Goofy is Jacob Marley. Jiminy Cricket is the ghost of Christmas Past. And of course, Donald Duck is his nephew Fred. And I don't know the names of of who plays the Ghost of Christmas Future and Ghost of Christmas Present, but of course I recognize the characters. But it's the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come is the guy. He's the cat, the big cat that is friends with Goofy. I don't know his name. And then I don't know if the character that plays the Ghost of Christmas Present, I don't know if he's been used in any other stories. But in this one, it follows the plot, but it does it in a kid way, something that kids can connect with and understand. It's it's a simplified version. It cuts out a lot of the stuff in the story. Like, we don't meet Fred's family. We don't go to in the story, Fred invites his uncle to a party at his house, and we see him, and he is taken to the party where we see that they're kind of mocking Scrooge and his attitude and everything. But we do not get that in Mickey's Christmas Carol. And we also, and then in Christmas Present and Christmas Yet to Come, there's a few more scenes. In fact, in Christmas Present, the spirit takes him to visit all these different people who are celebrating Christmas, people that are poor, away from their families, people that are alone, people that don't have the comforts of a rich house and lots of stuff and good food and stuff, or they're not with their families but with their friends. He sees all these different people celebrating Christmas no matter what their circumstances are, and still being joyful and having fun and recognizing the meaning of Christmas, which is, love and appreciating what you have and just looking back on your life and, And then, of course, there's a few more scenes with, Christmas Yet to Come. And then, of course, because, like I said, with Dickens' language, it's sometimes hard. Even someone who is, even as someone who loves Dickens, there are times when I'm like, okay, what just happened? What did the character say? Just get to the point. So this one doesn't include as many. There are a few lines, of course, the iconic Bah Humbug and God bless us everyone. Of course, they have to include those. They can't not include those. And they also include when Scrooge is like, anyone who wishes me Merry Christmas, should be boiled in his own pudding. I love that line. And if these things don't change, the shadows of something about the shadows. Basically implying that, if you don't change, if Tiny Tim his life doesn't change, then he will die. They include a variation of that line. But, like, for instance, the scene when the two men show up asking for Scrooge to donate, because he has enough to donate, he has plenty of money that he could donate. They're asking him to donate to the poor, and in the book he says, are there no workhouses? Are there no, are there no prisons? And the Ghost of Christmas Present throws that back in his face. And they don't include that line, but they have it where they include the scene, and they have it where Scrooge, and it's kind of funny in a very twisted, kind of very dark humor kind of way, where he's like, they show up asking him, and he's like, well, if I give you guys money, then the poor will not be poor, and you'll be out of the job. Please don't ask me to take away your jobs from you around Christmas time. And, it's kind of funny, the dark, twisted kind of, it's like, really? And, because we as the audience know that he just doesn't want to give away his money. So that was very, and then they also don't really include the part when the Ghost of Christmas Past takes him through time, we see him when he was a little boy, and the reason why what got him on the path of feeling the way he feels about, saving your pennies, is his father was constantly in debtor's prison. And I think that's how it was, and that was how it was for, Charles Dickens. His father was in prison, and he had to, as a little boy, he had to work in a factory. And his father basically tells him, remember to save your pennies, so that is why Scrooge is the way he is. That's what started him on the path of being the way he is as an adult, but we do not get that part. Now, with that being said, this story does still get its message across in a simple way. Kids, you almost have to tell a story in a very black and white way for a kid until they're old enough to understand more complexities, more complex thoughts. Like, imagine having to tell a kid that, he shouldn't be so greedy with his money, but then at the same time, you need to, if you want to live a comfortable, good life, and you do kind of have to save your money, be cautious with your money. Like, trying to explain to them, you have to have a balance between saving your money and also sharing it and not being greedy about it. Like, I think it would be hard to explain that to a child. So, I believe that this is a good starting point for a kid to tell the story and still get the message across. And it's also very humorous. Like, when looking back now, I was thinking recently that Goofy doesn't really fit Jacob Marley's character, but then my sister pointed out that he's a very funny, silly character, and so for a kid, you need to have something that's fun and silly, and like, the story is very serious and very dramatic, and if you still want to tell get kids into the story to be aware of A Christmas Carol, sometimes you gotta add something to it, add a little spice to it to make it entertaining and very fun. Even adults, like, sometimes some of the versions, to me, as great as the story is, can be seen as boring at times, unless they're told in a very fun, unique way, whether, with humor, or, like, told in a musical format. And I think that's the big struggle, is because this has been adapted so many times, they can find a way to make it fun and unique and something that people can enjoy and not be bored by. I think that's the key to making a good Christmas Carol, because everyone knows the plot at this point. And it's this, it hasn't changed. So it's like they have to add a little spice to it, make it entertaining, and still get that point across. Don't, not to lose the message of the story. And then, and I think, in my personal opinion, that you just watch Mickey's Christmas Carol, because the other Disney one, as much as I love Jim Carrey, and the computer animation is really cool. All the attention to detail and stuff is cool. But it was not super unique. It was the same story. The only unique aspect was how it was, it was computer animation, And then it was Jim Carrey, who's very, one of my favorite comedians. He's very talented. It showcases some of his talents, his non-physical talents. He played a lot of characters in the story. Like, I think he played all the ghosts, and he played Scrooge. So it showcases his voice talents as an actor. But it was nothing really super new to the story. And, the 3D effect I think it can be kind of jarring at times, because when they put in theaters, it was in 3D, because, of course, the way it was animated. But yeah, I don't have a lot to say about that one, because it's the same story. The only thing that makes it unique is that it's like Jim Carrey plays the title character and plays a couple other some other characters, and it's computer generated, so it's fun. But I think I prefer Mickey's Christmas Carol, and I think it's something you might as well just show your kids that one. I mean, if you want to watch it, I'm not gonna tell you not to watch it. I just personally am not a big fan of that one. I just prefer Mickey's Christmas Carol over that one. Sometimes though, if I'm watching TV and I want to put something Christmassy on, and other than a Hallmark movie, then I will. I'll watch it. Like if it's What brings me to, let me go ahead and talk about the Hallmark version. There was a Hallmark movie made, I think, last year. I think it was last year. And the one that made that one unique is, it's one of the modern adaptations, where you have a producer, a TV producer, I think, and she does a Christmas special every year inspired by country music, with country singers. So there were some veteran country singers. I think Sarah Evans was in it. And so it was kind of, what made that one fun was that it's country music. So if you're a country music fan, you might like that one. It had the actress who played the blonde chick in Pitch Perfect. I cannot remember her name. She was in it. So basically, if you like country music, and you love Christmas, then you might like this version. I mean, it follows the formula. There's a bit of a romance plot. What I noticed is a lot of modern adaptations. Like in the original story, Scrooge, it doesn't focus on Scrooge getting a second chance at love. At romantic love. It doesn't, his love interest is, she's gone. We don't know what happened to her. But in a lot of modern adaptations, the love interest, is part of the end goal. Part of the end goal for the character of Scrooge's journey, in this case, a woman. So she gets a chance. Which Hallmark Christmas movies, usually there's a love story involved. There's a romantic love story involved. So, it makes sense. So, like I said, it's a cute story. That I think a modern spin on the story. Like I said, the unique thing is the country music involved. So it has nice versions, fun, unique versions of the Christmas classics that you probably heard on the radio, especially if you listen to country music. And then we have, so after that, let's talk about, then we have, what else do? Let's talk about A Muppet Christmas Carol. So this one is a classic. A lot of people love this one. This is a fan favorite one. Like with Disney, it's iconic and very funny. A funny take. Michael Caine is Scrooge. Kermit the Frog is Bob Cratchit. Another thing is that in the Disney one, which is nice, that they focus more on Bob Cratchit's storyline. Because like I said, you gotta include that. I think is important to have the Bob Cratchit stuff because of Tiny Tim. And one of the turning points for Scrooge is when he realizes that Tiny Tim is a boy, he's crippled, and he could potentially die. So I feel like that's something that they have to include in every adaptation, the whole Tiny Tim stuff. Now, modern adaptations, I don't know how they do their own spin on the Tiny Tim stuff because, unfortunately, like, I can see where, like, in the original story, it's, like I said, Dickens has a habit of making very angelic children characters, but he's not the main character. Tiny Tim is only a small part of the story. I mean, he's not a small part, but he's not a big part he's not a big part in the story. He's very significant. He is significant. But I can see where the character would be a little bit, a little cheesy. So I'm wondering how modern adaptations would take on the character. But I feel like you gotta include that character because he's one of the key turning points for Scrooge. I don't recall. I've never actually sat down and watched the whole thing, but the one I was just talking about, the Hallmark one, I don't remember. Like, I haven't seen the whole version of the whole movie, but I don't know if they had the Tiny Tim part or not. But I think most adaptations would probably have Tiny Tim or a Tiny Tim like character. So, the Muppet Christmas Carol it's something that's like I can't really pinpoint explain why, but a lot of people grow up with the Muppets. It's like Disney. It's the same feeling that people have about Disney. A lot of people grew up with Disney and the Disney characters. It's iconic, and I feel like the Muppet version is also iconic for a lot of 90s kids. 90s, 80s, and 70s kids. The Christmas Carol, particularly the 90s kids. Like I said, as Michael Caine is Scrooge, and that one's a musical one with fun, catchy numbers. Once again, I love Kermit and Miss Piggy. Their relationship is always so entertaining. She's so aggressive with him and so forceful, and he's so meek and timid when it comes to her. But they're very sweet together. And it's just something about that one. I can't pinpoint why people love that one but I love that one. I mean, it's one of my favorites. It's only other than the musical version that I love, And then let's see. The next one I'm going to talk about let's talk about the Boy Meets World and Doctor Who episodes. So both those shows, I'm sure other shows have done it as well. So Doctor Who does a very unique, its own take on the story. It focuses a lot more on the time travel, and there's an element of science fiction to the story, not just the time travel aspect. And it also has this unique thing where the Doctor kind of influences. There's only the Doctor, his guide, and there's all these, like, he kind of changes the Scrooge figure's life a lot throughout. Like, he adjusts things a little bit throughout the story. And it just has a very unique take on the story, on the plot itself, which I really like. It doesn't follow the exact same plot, but I mean, it still has the same message and still covers the basic skeleton of the story. Where we have this miserly figure who's selfish and greedy and doesn't care about anyone else but himself, and is cynical, and this spirit, or in this case the Doctor, guides him and helps him find love and hope and the spirit of Christmas, just in time to save a group of people. One I like with that one is it does its own unique spin to the story. It does something different. It's one of the more different versions of the tale, which I really like. Probably one of my favorites. because of that. And then you have a Boy Meets World episode that also does its own kind of unique spin on the story. And you have, so, and this one, that one kind of focuses more on what the future could hold for the characters, one who's going to be changed. So you have Corey and Topanga are the main couple of the show, and they have a very complicated relationship. And Corey is a little more laid back and likes things to be the way that in this episode he's very laid back and all about, I want things to be a certain way, I'm all about tradition, and now he has to kind of welcome Topanga into his families and their traditions, and kind of has to learn to compromise with her. But she wants things, she kind of wants to add her own spin, her own traditions to their Christmas, and he's not too keen on that. He's not comfortable with it, and they end up having a fight about it. And he kind of decides to, like, he kind of runs away and goes off to hang out with Sean and Eric and Jack's apartment. And Mr. Feeney, as his spirit guide shows up. It's not Mr. Feeney though. It's a spirit guide shows up, dressed in the old Victorian garb, and he actually is the person. He's part of their family tradition where he will read the original story to the Matthews, and so it's fitting that he's the spirit guide, and he's also always kind of been Corey's spirit guide, and he ends up showing Corey what the future could be like if he walks away from Topanga and doesn't, try to find a compromise. So it gets the message. The message in this one is, it takes an aspect of the message about learning how to not be selfish and learning how to, what Christmas is really about. That's what. Sorry, my foot is so asleep right now. This is why I originally said I was not going to do this, but I thought it would be fitting to do this in front of my little tree that I have in my room. So it focuses on a certain aspect of the message, but all these stories, of course, focus on what Christmas is really about, the true meaning of Christmas. So it's kind of a very nice, sweet little take on the story. And once again, it has some humor in it. So I like those versions. I don't know if any of my other shows have done their versions of A Christmas Carol or not, but I could see where some of the fantasy shows I watch could do their own spin on A Christmas Carol as well. But although, what's nice about shows like Boy Meets World is, it makes it all the more special, I think, when it's a show based on reality, on the real world, where there's no magic or anything, but then you kind of have, around Christmas time, or Halloween time, they have an episode that has a little bit of a element of magic. My foot is asleep. This is why people don't sit on the floor and sit like this. Okay, so the last one I'm going to talk about, I'll have two more to talk about. First is A Christmas Carol, the musical, one of my favorite versions. This is a Christmas. First, I love the music in this one. Again, it follows the same plot with different actors, and it's a musical, and I'm a sucker for musicals. So, really, the only reason why I love this one is because it's a musical, and the music is beautiful in this. I love the music. So it's not a super unique version, except for that it's a musical. That's what makes it special. So it's more because I love this one because it's a musical. It stars Kelsey Grammer. Jennifer Love Hewitt is Scrooge's love interest. Jane Krakowski is the ghost of Christmas past. And it's what is really cool is the ghost, the spirits. We see them in Scrooge's life, not just as spirits, but townsfolk. Kind of, watching him from afar. And, I feel like it was kind of like one of these things where they were giving him a chance to prove himself beforehand, but because it didn't work, they continued to do their job. So, Jane Krakowski from 30 Rock fame, she was on Ally McBeal as Ally's secretary. She played Betty Rubble in Viva Rock Vegas. In Viva Rock Vegas. Although that was before she became Betty Rubble. And those are the only roles I know for sure. I'm sure, obviously, she's been in other stuff as well. I just can't think of it. But a lot of people probably would know her from 30 Rock. And then Jesse L. Martin from Rent fame. And he also was on Ally McBeal. I don't know what else he's done on TV. Oh, he was on Law and Order. That's right. He was one of the original actors in the Law and Order, one of the Law and Order shows. I think the original show. But that one did not involve singing. That was a serious drama. And then Jason Alexander is Jacob Marley. People know him from Seinfeld. He played in the 1997 version of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. I think he did he's done a little bit of voice work. And this one, the music is just so beautiful and heartwarming and emotional. Like I said, it's a musical. I'm a sucker for musicals. So not everybody loves musicals, and probably not everyone loved this one. But like I said, why I love this one, why it's my favorite, because it's a musical. So like I said, it's not anything super special unless you are a fan of musicals. And the acting is great. The acting performances are really great. So, in my opinion. So really, I don't have a lot to say. This one's not super unique. It's a musical version. So, and I love musicals. And behind the scenes talk about, it's one of their bigger productions, And this is actually Hallmark Entertainment. So it was a Hallmark related one. Okay, and then let's talk about this one. So every year they come up with a different adaptation of the story. Well, this is, like I said, is a fictionalized version of creating the story. So again, I don't know how accurate it is. I mean, obviously, he didn't have visions of his characters. I mean, maybe he did, but and with Christopher Plummer is Scrooge in this one, and but it's a story that focuses more on Dickens himself. And in a way, Dickens is like his character. I mean, he's not as greedy or as mean as his character, but there are elements of Scrooge that come from him, I think. And like his own past, he was his father got into debt a lot and was in debtor's prison. And you can see, and you get a little in that, so naturally it focuses on that aspect, his relationship with his father and how complicated it is. And now he's very angry at his father and resents him. And how for him it's important to have a comfortable life. And finances are very important. And he kind of loses sight of the true, of true happiness, and that it's not about having a bunch of stuff. Yeah, it's nice to have. And, in our society, we are a materialistic society, and we do have value, there is value on the importance of living a comfortable life. It's just as long as you find the balance between being greedy and selfish and wanting things for the sake of wanting them versus, living a comfortable life and just appreciating what you have and being grateful when you do have a lot. You are privileged to have a lot of stuff because not everybody is privileged for that. That's what Dickens' message was. You know, that was part of his message in Christmas Carol and a lot of his other novels. But yeah, this is fun. It's not a biopic. It's not 100% accurate, probably, but it's still a fun, interesting look at the creation of A Christmas Carol. And we also, you know, and it kind of does it in a fun way, unique way, retelling the original story, but in a different way, and you get to kind of see all the different characters from A Christmas Carol pop in and out. It's just, like I said, it's fun to see what inspired Dickens and kind of see somewhat of a potential of what might have been the story of how it happened, how he came up with A Christmas Carol. And I like these kinds of stories. I know a lot of people don't like them because they're not accurate and they ruin the story for them, supposedly. And it's like I love the movie Fur, an imaginary portrait, which it says in the title, an imaginary portrait, imaginary, not real. But I still love that movie, and I don't know anything about Diane Arbus, but I still like the movie. And it's kind of a fun way to look at the story, and you know what? I just want to have some fun and be entertained. And then, you know, there's also like Greatest Showman. It's not accurate to who the guy is. I cannot remember his name. He's kind of an asshole. That person is really an asshole in real life. I cannot remember his name. The guy who created Barnum. He's kind of an asshole, a douchebag in real life. So, and I'm not surprised people felt the need to point that out and be like, okay, he's not really a nice guy. He's kind of an asshole, and we shouldn't be celebrating him. And I'm not really surprised that the movie musical is not accurate to who Barnum really was as a person. You know, to me, like, it would be naive to assume that, but I also think you don't need to shove it down people's throats and be like, you shouldn't believe this. This is not the true Barnum. It's still a fun movie as far as a movie goes. It's fun and entertaining. Well, sometimes I think people have a very complicated relationship with Hollywood. But for me, I just want to, I get critical sometimes, and like I said, when I was talking about Mickey's Christmas Carol, I was like, Goofy doesn't really fit Jacob Marley. But sometimes I just want to relax and enjoy a good story, even if it's not accurate, even if it's an exaggerated version. I can do my own research. Most people, if they want to get the true story, they can do the research. If they don't, it's not like they have to rely on the movie for the research. I think people would know that. I don't think people are dumb I think people are smart enough to know that if it's, do the research. If you want to know for sure if it's an accurate interpretation, then I think people are smart enough to do the research to figure it out, to determine if it's accurate or not. I don't think it would be smart to, like, just assume that this is an accurate interpretation. Like, so it's a fun little take on the creation of A Christmas Carol. And then, of course, I have not seen The Afterlife of Polly Chase. I would probably get that one from the library if they had it, if I want to read it this month. And I could see if Libby has it. And then, you guys, I've shown this in my TBR that I want to read this story, which is the story of Tiny Tim as an adult, and how he's kind of trying to escape his past a little bit and have, he doesn't like having this identity. So that is my thoughts on the Christmas Carol adaptations. Tell me, which ones are your favorite? Please feel free to share in the comments below. I'd love to know which ones are your favorite versions of the story. I don't know which one is my favorite. Like I said, I love, I have a soft spot for Mickey's Christmas Carol because I grew up with that one. The Muppet one, I love this one because it's a musical. Um, I love all the ones I talked about. Like I said, I think Boy Meets World and Doctor Who did a unique spin on the story. Um, I'm not the biggest fan of the latest Disney version of it. I think it's just okay. It was kind of cool in some aspects. Um, so that is my thoughts. Like I said, that is my thoughts on the Christmas Carol adaptations, or at least the ones I've seen. So if you guys like this video, be sure to give a thumbs up, click subscribe if you haven't already, click the bell notification below if you want to see when I post new videos. And I hope, if you're reading A Christmas Carol, let me know. And I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye!